Good evening, everybody, and welcome to 2022's very first episode from us, Learn Live UAE. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Pink Shirt Thursday, everybody. It still feels slightly weird in the Middle East, wearing or it not being on a Friday, but I'm resolute. I believe it's the right thing to do to keep it on a Thursday. A massive thank you to everybody as well, whether you've been a guest on the show or a supporter of Mark and I and Learn Live UAE. A big thank you. At the end of 2021, Mark, we reached the goal of 100 educators that came and shared on the show. Tonight, the start of 2022, marks our 101st and more guests.
Yeah, it's been a really fantastic ride over the course of the show, over the years that we've been doing it now. I can't believe it was sort of the blossoming of an idea. It's been really weird. I've been having Facebook 2 years ago today notifications. My last time in the UAE was at the Jest Digital Summit, where I was a presenter and speaker and workshop facilitator, all those sorts of things at the Jest Digital Summit. But 2 years ago, last week I was over for that, and just strange. But it's been such a fantastic ride. So many fantastic sharing ideas, and a few awards along the way, such as the Guest Award we received just before Christmas as well. But as Ollie will always share, we couldn't do it without you. So if you are keen to come and join us on the show and share, like many of our educators today, then please do reach out to myself or Ollie, and we would love to give you the opportunity and a platform to share some of the great practice and ideas and the things that are working for you in your classroom, in your context, in your setting, within your school. So Ollie does have some big news, though, as I mentioned, so I'm just going to hand back over to you, Ollie, and let you share your big news.
Thanks, Mark. Actually, my news is that I will be leaving the UAE at the end of this year. It's been fantastic being part of BISAD's team over the last 4 years. However, time is for a changing, and I'll be moving back to the UK and taking up the position of Head of Digital Transformation at the Thomas Deacon Education Trust. Hugely excited to work with a vast array of different educators that have influence across a huge number of students in a really forward-thinking trust. So massively excited for that, Mark. Looking forward to the change. Probably will take me a little bit of time to get used to the winter, but summer is a good time to move back to the UK, I think, and really looking forward to it. It's going to be a wonderful experience. Can't wait.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But on with the professional learning. Really yes. Keen to hear from other people than just ourselves. But congratulations again on your big news, Ollie. I'm really pleased for you. It's a fantastic opportunity. 10 schools, really diverse. Early years to alternative provision to super secondary. There's a lot to. Not bring any pressure on you or anything at all, Ollie. But there's a great opportunity. And some fantastic things that can come out of that I'm sure will be the case when you land back in the UK, ready for that for September. So with no further ado, then let's get cracking with the show. Our first guest on this evening, Ollie, would you like to introduce our first speaker tonight, please?
Absolutely. Our first speaker is Katie Clark. She is Head of History at the British School of Muscat. And congratulations go to her as well, and to her husband, Matt, who's a long-time supporter, aka sufferer as well of the show, and has come on and shared gold. But Katie tonight is going to come on and share some of the work that she's been doing around EDI in her school. So really excited to welcome Katie to the show.
Welcome, Katie. Hi. And congratulations from you as well.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Lovely introduction.
So you're sharing today. We're going to bring your presentation up now. Just lose that little overlay so we can see your presentation properly. You're talking about developing inclusive curriculums in secondary schools. So with no further ado, we'll hand over to you. Your 7 minutes start when Ollie says go.
Did he say go?
Yes. Did you say go, Ollie? There we go. Brilliant stuff. Good luck, Katie. Thanks for sharing. Thank you.
Okay, so I know that you've had Esther, my colleague and close friend that I've been working with, creating and improving the DEI in our school. There's been a lot of discourse around this topic in the last couple of years, and a lot of that is where to start it. Should you start it with policy or behaviour or recruitment? And as head of department, head of history, or as a classroom teacher, one of the things that we have direct impact on can be the curriculum. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. So to start off with, we started looking at what do we have already within our curriculum. There's already quite a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion across the range of departments, but we wanted to focus on how different people and cultures are represented. And within our departments, if we're looking at different countries, what countries are we depicting using images of famine and civil unrest? And what countries are we celebrating for progress and innovation? If we're showing Western countries, are we also showing the poverty and the civil unrest in those as well? So there's a lot of work going on within individual departments. But as always with teaching, there's always room for reflection and for evaluation. So at the beginning of last academic year, we came together and we asked our senior school departments to fill in a reflection sheet or an audit to see which areas they were already doing well and which areas they could perhaps focus on for the next year, because there's so many elements of DEI work that you can focus on. This was specifically for curriculum, so for each different department. It was largely based off some of the research that was kindly shared with me by the National Education Union in the UK. And we also gave our primary school year teams a similar audit, slightly different, but with only 7 minutes. I think I'll save that one for another time, maybe. So we looked at these audits to kind of think about what we've done, what we can do more of, and we came up with 5 steps that we could take to actively make each of our curriculums more inclusive and meaningfully as well. So I'm going to run through those 5 steps today. So the first one we thought of was to broaden the use of resources that we have. And that's by presenting a diverse range of voices and perspectives across course content, in reading lists, in case studies, in classroom content. By doing this, we immediately allow for more inclusive curriculum. So including voices and perspectives of individuals from a wide range of backgrounds. And that can be done without drastically changing what's being taught. So I will try and give a range of examples from different departments, but the first one will be history. So within history, we teach already about the British suffragette movement. And previously, that had been focused predominantly on white females. So this is Emily Davison. Most people listening, probably, if you've gone through a British education system, you've heard of her throwing herself in front of a horse in the bid to try and win women the vote. We adapted this scheme of work. So we still teach about Emily Davison, but we also now teach about this lady, Princess Sophia Duleep Singh, who was an Indian suffragette who campaigned in the UK for the British women's right to vote, as well as campaigning for many other things. And this was quite an easy, a quick way to increase our representation within our curriculum, not only for ethnic backgrounds, but also for ideas about class and about wealth. So touching on a number of different strands of diversity as well. With this, we can also bring in the idea of sequencing, like when does our curriculum first mention women, for example, and how does that then transgress across the number of years that we teach them? How do we paint different nations across the years when pupils have their deep chronological or contextual understanding of different themes? How does this improve each year? This can be backed up with some studies. Zepke and Leach in 2007 found that students responded well when their examples that were used reflected their own backgrounds and identities positively, showing that representation in the curriculum is important. In some disciplines, for example, science, basic scientific concepts might be associated predominantly with white males. However, to address this, we can consider inviting seminar speakers from diverse backgrounds to deliver content or promoting current examples of people working within different fields. Part of the reflection that we had from the audit was a lot of subjects kind of picking out things that they didn't realize they were missing. So for example, business studies realized they were very racially diverse in the case studies that they gave, but they actually didn't have that many examples of females in business. So even just having the audit to reflect can help us start to change the lens that we're looking through. Second step is to contextualize our course materials, so thinking about the context in which they were made. For example, if a resource that we're sharing was made when colonialism was dominant, or when women weren't able to vote, or when people of varying abilities weren't given the same opportunities as the able-bodied, even just explaining this to students in the context that we're giving it to them can help challenge stereotypes or narratives that they believe as gospel. And it helps them to not just accept the dominant narrative that we're sharing with them. A really great win here is a research project for pupils, and this works in a number of different departments, to research in their own time an artist or a scientist or a mathematician who is not like a straight white Western male. It is worth stressing here that when giving this idea to pupils, it's worth explicitly explaining to them why they are doing this to challenge the narratives that they're taught, but also giving them some direct instruction. We had a science teacher who set a cover work to research a scientist of color, and he got loads of entries of pupils that had researched Isaac Newton and his work on sunlight and prisms. So they didn't quite understand what they'd been asked to do there. So as always, direct and explicit instruction is key. Step 3 was to avoid stereotypes in course content and to celebrate diversity. So reviewing the content that we're teaching to make sure it's not perpetuating any stereotypes of race or class, nationality, ability, gender, and ensuring that the range of examples that we're providing when giving lessons or reading lists or problem-based scenarios, anything like that, presenting equality in a positive light. Yeah, am I doing? 1 minute. We might just get 4 points in. Yeah. Will help promote things in a positive light as well. And this helps again with trying to deliver content which not only shows the students themselves reflected in the curriculum, but also others in a positive way. Our curriculums should be representative of not just the majority that we have within our classrooms, but of the world that we are sending the students out into at the end. Fourth one is acknowledging any limitations. So as I have right now, and as we all have as secondary school teachers, one of our most precious resources is time. We don't always have the time to bring in some of these new ideas. So just using them to kind of start conversations, start discussion and start debates, thinking about inequalities is something that student engagement has always increased when they're asked to question or challenge stereotypes and inequalities as well. So even just starting those conversations is a good place for us to start. How am I doing? Shall I do step 5? I'll do it quickly. Number 5, increase our own pedagogical knowledge. So just by reading articles, talking to subject specialists, engaging on Twitter, there's so much of this work out here at the moment. A friend of mine recently attended a CPD put on by Shakespeare's Globe, which was specifically about how to teach Shakespeare anti-racistly. So there's just so many resources out there, and so many of them are online and digital now as well, that there's a lot of different ways we can engage in this work.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Katie. And it's great to see, your whole school alignment and approach towards this, and you reaching out to all stakeholders to make sure that what you're doing is not only contextualized, but specific to all of the different stakeholders in your school community. And I think that's a really important part of what you're achieving here. I really look forward to seeing where it goes. And of course, we'd love to have you back on to share a little bit more about your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If anyone wants to kind of delve into anything, please do reach out to Katie. You can see her Twitter handle scrolling along the bottom here at Katie Doll. Any suggested reading? One final thought from you, Katie, on this topic?
Yeah, well, there's loads. I had a slide on it, but I didn't quite get onto it. There's absolutely loads. I guess go into if we're going to department specialists, I would go for your subject booklets, but here's a list of links and the case studies as well that I referenced. So there's loads of different places that we can start to look. Diverse Educators is a good one. It's got lots of blogs on there as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll take a screenshot of that and we'll share that on Twitter. So please do engage, ladies and gents. Katie, thank you so much for your time tonight. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Up next on the show, we have Tom Gaylor. Tom is Head of Digital Innovation at Arcadia School in Dubai. If we can welcome Tom onto the show now, please. Bring him up onto the stage. Tom, welcome. You're 102nd show on the show.
Brilliant. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much. I'm mindful of time, so should we bring your slides up onto the show and we can just dive straight into your presentation? I don't want to steal your thunder, Tom.
Yeah, sure. So my presentation today is all about the importance and coding in primary education. A really quick intro about me. My name is Tom Gaylor. I've been a teacher for the last 10 years. I've been in Dubai for the last 6 as head of computing and digital innovation at Arcadia School in Dubai. I'm also an Apple Distinguished Educator and Professional Learning Specialist. Essentially, my day-to-day role is improving the use of technology in our school, making lessons more fun and exciting for our students. But also, aside is that I teach computing primarily to primary school children, and particularly at the moment, the younger age groups. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. First thing for anyone that maybe doesn't know and doesn't have a background in computer science is what is coding? And we've got a bit of a definition here. Coding, sometimes called computer programming, is how we communicate with computers. Code tells a computer what action to take, and writing code is like creating a set of instructions. By learning to write code, you can tell computers what to do or how to behave in a much faster way. You can use this skill to make websites and apps, process data, and do lots of other cool things. There's a few things that we can take from that definition about coding, and that's basically that coding is how we communicate with computers. And we do that by creating sets of instructions that tell them what we want them to do and how we want them to behave. Now, you may be thinking, why is this relevant to children? And particularly, why is it relevant to kind of 4 or 5-year-olds to start learning coding early on? And that's simply because coding is everywhere in our day-to-day lives at the moment. Every electrical system pretty much now has some form of code built to it that tells it how we want it to behave and what we want it to do when different things happen. And it's a person that will have coded this at some point when it was created. You've got things like traffic light systems, smart homes that use Alexa, washing machines, obviously things like Google or mobile phones. There are so many different things in the world today where coding is a big part of what they do. And over the next 10 years or into the future, coding is going to become such a big area in the world, and there's going to be a lot of job opportunities for people and for our students that are coming through education now. Got some statistics here that have come from the US, but we can kind of extrapolate that data out. But computing jobs are the #1 source of new wages in the US. And this is expected to grow at twice the rate of all other jobs year on year. Another surprising statistic is 500,000 jobs are currently available in the computer science sector, just in the US. On top of that, there are only currently about 65,000 graduates coming through universities with a computer science degree. So you've got a lot of jobs, you've got not many people qualified to do them. Also, in terms of that, people that have a computer science degree can earn 40% more than somebody else who has a degree in another subject on average. So you've got this job market where there's amazing opportunities for our students to go into in the future, but computer science is also a really enjoyable subject in schools. A survey that was done found that 54% of students enjoyed studying computer science and engineering a lot, with only art and design and performing arts more popular than it. So you've got a popular subject that children enjoy, you've got an amazing prospect for the future with jobs and opportunities, and something that affects everybody's lives. But then as well, what skills do students develop when we do computer science and coding with them? They learn things like problem solving, computational and logical thinking. They learn about persistence and resilience to not give up, which will help them to develop a growth mindset. They learn about creativity, and they obviously, when they're working with others, learn about their collaboration and communication skills. So when we're developing coding in our young students, they're not only developing the skill of coding, they're also developing all these other key skills that are going to be really useful for them in any subject that they do. And also, obviously, later on in life, all these skills are really important. So how do I deliver that in my school at the moment? Anyone can take a screenshot of this and kind of see what we do. We basically, half of our curriculum that we do is computer science and coding based. The other half is kind of creative and information technology based. But you'll see here, a lot of the things that we do are actually completely free resources that I'll go through a little bit more in a minute, except for the robotics kind of modules where you do obviously need to bring. But we have quite a progressive curriculum, but really focusing on the creative side of coding with our students as well, because that's a really key thing that we want to promote. I'm very conscious of time. I don't know how quickly I've rushed through it, but I'll just go through some top resources before I finish off. So for anyone who's interested in coding or is teaching it in their classrooms, maybe doesn't know where to start, Apple have released a curriculum which goes from the very beginning of primary school all the way through to secondary school, which is called Everyone Can Code. If you have a Google of that, you will find a full curriculum there that you can use. All the resources in there are completely free. Scratch Junior is a completely free app that I use for kind of year 1 and year 2 coding. Again, a really creative app where the students can, be really creative, create things like animations and games with their coding. We move on to Scratch, which is a desktop-based program that are created by the guys at MIT. Again, really promoting creativity in children's coding, but on a slightly more complex level. Before we move on to something like Swift Playgrounds, which again is an app that's developed by Apple to go with their Everyone Can Code curriculum. And they have a lot of different programs and modules that you can use in there for starting to get children on text-based coding and using a different coding language, whereas the ones down here are more block-based coding. I also use something called Codespark Academy, which is a fantastic app that the students love and engage in. It teaches coding concepts in a really great, fun, interesting way. It allows children to code and create their own games. It allows them to code and create their own stories. And that is completely free for teachers to create their own account. There is Tinker, which again is part of the Everyone Can Code curriculum. Some of those areas you have to pay for, but a lot of the content in there is completely free. And again, teaches those early coding concepts to children. And finally, a really great resource is Code.org, developed by the people in the States. Again, has a progressive curriculum that teaches all the key coding concepts for different age groups. And it also includes things like Minecraft, Frozen, superheroes, things that are going to engage our students in coding, and has celebrities also introducing the different coding concepts on the videos that introduce the lessons. I feel like I've gone quick. Thank you very much. If anyone wants to... There we go.
Thanks for sharing that, Tom. Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much indeed. As you can see, there's Tom's Twitter handle. You can follow him there. You've been able to see that sort of scrolling across the bottom during the course of Tom's presentation as well. Thanks for that. Some great insights. It's such an important subject as a computing teacher myself, an ICT teacher, and a bit of a ICT evangelist myself, shall we say. Lots and lots that resonated there with me. So some great resources and great ideas there for sharing. Thank you very much for coming on and joining us today. Cheers, Tom.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Our next guest sharing on Learn Live UAE today is another colleague from British School of Muscat, Jenny McCubbin, sorry, will be joining us any moment. That was me losing my thread there because of her Twitter handle. You'll see that for yourself in just a moment. I think that may have been her maiden name there. She will confirm that, I'm sure, in just a moment, probably. Welcome to Jenny on to Learn Live UAE. Hope you're well. You've got your presentation ready as well. Everything's up and ready there. So look forward to learning more about the Picasso project from you in your presentation now. Your 7 minutes to present start now, Jenny. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I am Jenny McCubbin as of quite recently, hence the change in handle name. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the rather drastic changes we have made recently to our Key Stage 3 curriculum in MFL. More specifically, what has become quite affectionately known as the Picasso Project. And really, I'm going to be looking at how we have used EPI at Key Stage 3 to see some real success with speaking in modern foreign languages. So what I'd like to cover in my 7 minutes is why did we make such drastic changes to our curriculum? What is EPI? And I will be very brief about that, partly for time and partly as it is a vast subject. of which I'm not an expert, but really recommend some research to go with that. I would like to talk about how we're going to go about how we went about changing it, and most importantly of all, the impact that we have seen because of it. So starting then with our why, so if we can think back to those days pre-COVID, within the MFL community, there was certainly, and there has been for really a very long time, some concern regarding the decline in uptake of GCSE languages. For us, where we are currently, languages are actually compulsory, so we don't see it quite so much at GCSE. However, for our school specifically, we really did have a concern regarding A-level uptake. So that was something that we were already, concerned about, working on, thinking about before COVID. And then, of course, COVID hit, and suddenly we were in this online learning situation. Then we were sort of online, offline, blended, one thing and another. And I'm sure many colleagues from the secondary world would appreciate the pain that is trying to get students to speak through devices. So we had, nearly 18 months of this online learning with almost no speaking practice, which again is only going to elevate our concerns around development within MFL, particularly around speaking, which of course would then have a delayed impact on potentially uptake later on. So that got me thinking to the next academic year. So this is around the sort of end of last academic year. I started thinking, okay, what is the future going to look like in September? Are we going to come back and our students, they're still going to be on mute if we don't really think about how we can tackle this? And again, as I said, the consequences of that could roll down the line into GCSE and A-level. So that is what sort of prompted these rather drastic changes. And what did we do? We did quite a lot. And for time, I really want to highlight the fact that we implemented EPI, which is Dr. Gianfranco Conti's method. Vast research out there, and Twitter has a plethora of resources to find out the real nitty-gritty of his method. But effectively, and to summarize, it is based on the fact, as it is fact, that humans chunk everything into patterns in order to lighten the load on our working memory, so particularly processing language. So rather than teaching single words plus the grammar explanation, we want to try and move to teaching through sentence patterns. So to show you what that kind of looks like a little bit more, if you imagine this is what I was teaching prior to changing our curriculum. So you can see that we've got kind of individual vocabulary phrases, blue eyes, grey eyes, brown eyes. And then below it was a very explicit grammar explanation of the verbs. So vocabulary, grammar, trying to explain both very explicitly. Not a lot of repetition, not a lot of opportunity to really flood the students with that vocabulary and pattern, and therefore often found that they were not absorbing and maintaining that. However, if we look quickly at how we now present the vocabulary in these particular sentence patterns, and this is where the Picasso side came in, we thought, okay, so we need to start teaching in sentence patterns. So this is the kind of layout and this is how we would present vocabulary and phrases to our students now. We give them what is very well known in MFL as the sentence builders, and anyone familiar with Conti would certainly recognize those. So this is what they sort of look like now we have designed. I'm going to talk through exactly how we then implemented it. And I'm sorry, I know I'm rushing because I'm very conscious of time. So we started with the research, and that was at the end of last academic year. And I trialed this method with my head of department and got student feedback. And it was almost unanimous from the students that they felt more comfortable and engaged and happy with this new particular method that we were using. Then we were looking to resources, and this is where I have to shout out to the MFL Twitterati community because the generosity of sharing is just incredible. Joe Dale, Simograph particularly, Steve Smith and Conti, everybody very, very generous in their sharing. And so if you were considering making that move to this particular method, don't be intimidated because there is just so much support and resource there. So once we had done that, the other thing that Conti talks about a lot in this particular method is the context and how important it is for us to think about who are we? Who are we teaching? Who are we teaching? Who are we as teachers? What is the most relevant, appropriate context? So for me, my background is art history. We're also obviously driving on diversity. So when it came to planning a unit around giving physical descriptions, we landed on the context of Picasso and his Cubist works, which of course, as you can see from some of those images, are not particularly conventional paintings. So there was a lot of opportunity to bring in diverse language to describe the imagery. Come September, we had done the research, we had some resources, we thought about who we were, and then honestly, we just went for it. And I'm very fortunate. I work in a very collaborative, cohesive department who are very enthusiastic. And overnight, almost, we threw everything out and brought in our new context, new teaching content, and learned through it together. And the reason I wanted to share this with everybody really is because of what I have seen and what our students have achieved because of this. I think that's my 1 minute warning, is it? Okay.
Yep.
So the impact then, if I were to summarize the impact that this has had on our students, at the beginning of the term, I shared this image that you can see on the board with them. Our objectives were to learn about the life, describe people and artworks, and to present a Picasso painting in Spanish. I had no idea that by the end of the term, we would go so far beyond that. And in fact, my students were able to stand in a theatre in front of their entire year group, their head of school, several other members of staff on a recording. And not only did they do that brilliantly, they requested to do it by themselves. So even though we said that this was a paired activity, many of them actually said, no, I want to do this on my own, completely unscripted and unprompted. So it was phenomenal to see. Obviously speaking was a real focus, but there's some examples of the writing as well.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It's great to see the students putting their foot forward and voting and saying, look, we want to own this and we want to do that. And I think that's the hallmark of something that is really successful in a school, when students, actively do that. And also great to see you shouting out other educators and some of the research in your project. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to find out more, please do follow Jenny on Twitter. You can see her handle scrolling along the bottom of the screen there. It's been scrolling along for your entire presentation. And it's great to have yet more BSM colleagues coming and sharing on the show. Thank you so much. It's really great to see that not only are you driving enthusiasm, but creating amazing experiences for your learners at BSM.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a real joy, the whole experience.
Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you on the show. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, on the show, we have Guy Schooley. Guy has been in the Middle East for a little while now, I think it's fair to say. He's deputy head at Amity International School in Abu Dhabi and fellow colleague on the committee for the Abu Dhabi Teacher Conference. Guy, I'm going to hand the floor over to you, bud.
Cheers, Ollie. Thank you. And hi, Mark. How are you doing? Right. So what I'm going to talk about today is basically community. And just before we go into the presentation, we just have to look back over the last couple of years and recognise that COVID has not been pretty, and it's really impacted upon schools, especially where we are in Abu Dhabi, and it's had quite a detrimental effect. Now, I'm really keen on some of Simon Sinek's work on why, and it's probably been done to death, but I think it's really, really important. And I think community is one of those key areas in schools that people pay lip service to. Now,
sorry to interrupt you, Guy. Completely agree with you on the Simon Sinek thing. Would you mind running your presentation full screen so it fills?
Yeah, sorry. I will. I was just going to have hold on.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Here we go. Hold on. There we go. Is that better?
Not yet.
Ah.
You can still just see sort of standard PowerPoints.
Working?
No, if you're on PowerPoint, if you press F5 on your keyboard, that should make it go full screen.
F5, yep. StreamYard.com is sharing a window. Stop sharing, it says.
This side, we see PowerPoint just as PowerPoint is, with the slides down the left-hand side.
Is that better?
No, it's completely disappeared now. I think you've stopped sharing your screen now.
Oh dear, that's not helpful. Right, never mind. Right, we're back up.
Not as yet, sorry, Guy.
Oh.
Okay, there's your presentation. So I can see PowerPoint
Well,
again.
Mashallah. Mashallah.
And then
So, as I was saying,
maximize it full screen so we can see the whole thing. That'd be great.
yeah.
No, there's an icon for it as well. On the bottom right-hand corner where you've got your slider for zooming in and out, the icon directly to the left of your slider for zooming in and out in the bottom right-hand corner, that icon there will put it full screen as well.
What's this? Full screen in front of me now.
It may be something to do with the setup. It's not going to... The problem you've got, Guy, and apologies, viewers, the problem you've got, I think maybe you're using two screens, perhaps that's the reason why it's not working right, is that as you move from one slide to the next, it won't change for us on what we're actually seeing.
Hold on. Right.
Okay, so Guy appears to have frozen now as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Ollie back in a second. And what I think we'll do is we'll drop Guy out. Hopefully he can come back in properly. And Ollie, if you'd like to introduce our next guest, and then hopefully we can get Guy back in towards the end of the show. Brilliant stuff. Thank you ever so much, and apologies for those technical issues just there. Ollie, over to you a second.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Such is the way with technology, right? Our next guest is Connell. I'm not even going to attempt to surname because I don't want to do it a disservice, but Connell's been in the region for a little while now. He is head of digital learning in Brighton College, Abu Dhabi branch, and it's fantastic to see him coming onto the show and sharing. And perhaps he could just give us a little intro about an event he's involved in towards the end of next term.
Oh, yes. So we will both be involved, I think, in the Digital Summit in Abu Dhabi. I believe you've been in touch with Hufeza again regarding it.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure on the venue. Do you know?
No idea. No idea. I was hoping that you could tell us that. Watch this space. Keep an eye on Connell's and my Twitter to find out more about that. Welcome to the show, Connell. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And you can see my presentation, is that correct?
You can, yeah. If you want to go play from the start, and it'll be on the screen with yourself on.
Yeah. Yes. So I've just got my idea basically from listening to another podcast, an economics podcast. And the whole idea was the economy is like a living organism. And then a few weeks later, it kind of dawned on me that actually school is kind of like a living organism in itself and the curriculum within that. So I'm stealing David McWilliams' idea basically and applying it to education. So living organisms, what I'm going to focus on, they must respond to stimulus. So first of all, what is the current stimulus affecting education without focusing on the obvious? There's
Connell?
Also, yes?
Can I just pause you there, bud? Are you dual screening?
Nope.
Okay, if you want to go full screen on your presentation.
Yeah, I am full screen.
It's not coming up on our end as you
Let
being
me
full screen.
share it on slides instead. It might work better. Is this? Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. Cool. I will start the timer.
Thank
Floor
you.
is yours.
Thank you. So, living organisms must respond to stimulus, and the idea we're going to do is there's a big focus on content in a few curriculum, whether that's our interpretation of content or whether that's the curriculum itself being quite content heavy over skills. There's the huge furore over the big catch up after COVID. And in general, there's an increase in harvesting external assessment data, even in primary phase, and especially here in the UAE at the moment. I know Dubai are a little bit ahead of us in Abu Dhabi in that regard. And then we've got other localized things in the UAE, such as the shorter working weeks for some. And my idea is just to ask, is there another way? Can we make the same progress either in a shorter time frame, or can we make this big catch up happening without focusing on PowerPoint presentations the entire time? Obviously, that's me being a little bit ironic giving you a PowerPoint slide, but the things that we regard as important may not be actually important. I know Tom touched on it earlier with coding, and some of the jobs not only might not exist at the moment for the children we're teaching, but we may not even be able to comprehend what those jobs are in the future. And that's really resulted in parents not placing that much value in standardized tests. So what I'm going to do is just give two very quick ideas for lessons. They're quite focused, but also general enough that you could apply them right across the board, I feel. So number one is just a standard typical white rose question. Lots of people who teach in primary will be familiar with this. Really standard question. And this was great for working through the method, but then my challenge to the children was to take this question, adapt it, make it your own. Can you make it more challenging? Can you make it more creative? And we use the most basic, simple tools on our tablets, on our iPads. So we used camera, we used markup tool, and we used airdrop. That's all we needed to use. And you can see here, we've got a much more challenging question than what's on the slide by the child who's asked. We've got another example here where the child has actually switched the focus from the output to the input. So the input's already been given. That means a different skill in working backwards, using the inverse, etc. And what I enjoyed is once your children is used to the structure and then it's kind of taken away, they'll actually start to mimic you as a teacher. So we had decimal points here, so really extra challenging. This involved the topic beforehand, but they actually went and differentiated their own questions as well. So we had different levels of challenge and who this question might be applicable to. And then we even have a little bit of a pastoral well-being check-in. How happy or how confident are you with this question, for example? And then a little bit more as well. And the next idea I have, I don't think our media will play sharing the slides via this one, but this is something I kind of coined as the anti-lesson. And the reason I call that is because you're kind of removing the structures that we have for lessons, the normal everyday where you tell the children the expected outcome. And for this to work, you really need to give the children lots of time to think. There needs to be a little bit of stimulus for this particular lesson. There was just music, and you have to be prepared to go on a little bit of a journey. And the planning shifts from more resources focused to being really question orientated. So what underpins the success of this lesson is having the correct questions to drive forward the thinking, keep the engagement going, drive the conversation. And it's interesting, just the variety of different outcomes that you get from the pupils, where when you remove that barrier and you allow them to be creative. So the first thing was a little video where a group of people actually planned together and organized on distance learning to do a whole conversation to the background of the music. And it was a little bit of a dramatization with the music that was played in the background. And there's all sorts of drama going on between a trip to Paris, and then they were uninvited to a trip to Paris, and then the end, it suddenly goes into a mashup of images with the death of the friendship. And then we had a completely different way here, where when this was uploaded initially, I thought, has the student really just gone online, Googled an image, and then that's what they've uploaded? And then I actually asked a very open question, how did you create it? And you can see from his response there that it was far from just Googling an image. He's gone into 3D rendering, and he's done all sorts of, even having to change the type of image file it was to upload to Seesaw on the iPad. So it's one of those, don't judge a book by its cover, and eerily similar to actually what happens in the video, except in a more modern format. And then again, we had a little GIF here with, there was just a piece of artwork that the people created on the iPad that goes through a heart, and then perhaps the character has got some heart disease and suddenly passed away and died. Again, eerily similar to what happens in the video. And the result of that is that this is one of my most reluctant readers, who's actually written something quite heartfelt. So my wife's Shadow. And it just means that's going to be the driver of improvement. And the next steps for them will be to write their own story and maybe look forward into the future to see what they will build. So the key takeaways here is to try and drown out the noise of a so-called catch-up and focus on what we actually know will help make progression. Happy children make progression. Engaged children who enjoy their lessons make progression. And when children are given the license to be creative, then they'll fly. And even the best structured lessons or apps go stale. And a variety of different lesson structure wins every time, whether it's flipped learning, whether it's discussion-based, whether it's an anti-lesson that I've shown you. All these things help create a variety of learning and prevents planning rate from just going stale. So a variety of planning and happy children, that's what will make progress.
That's great, Connell. Thank you so much for coming on there. And much of that resonates about, student mindset as well as student well-being in order to facilitate the best learning experiences for them and make the most progress ultimately through that variety and opportunity to do many different things within the classroom and focus on ultimately what really matters most, and that's happy, engaged students that are loving learning about their subject. Thank you so much for coming on the show. If anyone would like to follow Connell on Twitter, please do check out his handle. It's over that side, and it's been scrolling along the entire time. Please do reach out to him to learn more about what he's been up to at Brighton College, Abu Dhabi. Thank you so much, Connell.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Ladies and gents, we are going to welcome back now to the show Mr. Guy Schooley, and we can see if we can get the technology to work for us. Guy, do you want to? Can we bring your presentation up on?
Right, we'll try again. I think through COVID, we would have supposed to have got really good at using ICT, but
we go again. There's a great opportunity to show resilience.
Yes,
all of those facets that we've been developing over the last 2 years, but you got this.
Right.
Just while guys sharing his screen, I can give a little shout out to the Abu Dhabi Teacher Conference. Save the date, Saturday, 14th of May, 2022. Follow at ADTC 2022. Guy, Deputy Head, Amity International School. Full screen.
Now,
mate.
Ollie, I'm just checking. Is that working correctly?
Yes, brilliant, perfect.
Ah, mashallah, we're back in the game. Brilliant.
Off we go.
So, as I was saying before, COVID has had a really detrimental effect on a lot of schools in the UAE. So, as part of my role at Amity was to basically rebuild the community, because a strong community will lead to a successful school, a thriving and prosperous and successful school, and that's what we want. So what I've done is just put a few little bits and pieces that we've done to help build our community back up, because basically COVID decimated it, and we really want to try and put that back together. So one of the first things that we've done is we've put this together, and this is it's called our Amity Strava Club. Now, for those of you who don't know, Strava is an app that you get that measures your activity. So we've put together our little Strava club, and we've got routes all over Abu Dhabi that we can measure with GPS, and we have and promote our weekly little competition. Now, our weekly competition comes in, we have parents, we have teachers, and we have students all competing on Strava, posting their rides, their runs, their walks, their stand-up paddleboarding, their sailing, whatever they do onto this platform, and it helps us measure. And we can keep count of the time, the distance, and what everyone's up to. So it's brilliant. We have a little weekly competition that we put out in the newsletter, who's won that week, and that's been really, really positive exercise to do, because for a while we couldn't do PE. Now, in a school like ours, where we've got some great facilities for sport and PE, it's hit the pupils quite hard. So what we wanted to do is, okay, we can't do it in school, but what can we do outside of school to encourage our pupils to get physically active and take part in some sort of competition like you would normally have in your PE lessons. So yeah, that was one to set up, and if any of you are interested, it's really quite cheap to do, and doesn't take a lot of time to set up, but can have a really positive effect on your community. Every day I go on there and I see at least 50 activities that people have been up to, and we can cheer each other on and give each other kudos, which is it's quite a nice thing to do. And now we have over 140 members on our club throughout our school, so that's been quite successful. Now, the next one we've done, I'm extremely lucky at the school that I work on. We've got a sailing academy. Now, again, with the COVID rules, we won't allow parents into school. So I was like, that's a real shame, because parents, they really miss that interaction with teachers. They can come in and they can ask questions, and we'd kind of taken that away from them. They couldn't even come in and kind of talk to each other as they would normally, because everyone was socially distanced. Now, I thought, okay, right, well, we can't have parents in school, but we can meet parents outside of school. So what we do, just down on the beach 3 times a week now, we have we've called our Parents WhatsApp Club, where we get to go down and we use our kayaks and we use our stand-up paddleboards, and we put on for them 3 times a week in the mornings, just after drop-off. They can come down and they can take part, they can socialize, they can chat, they can talk about the progress of their children, how they're getting on at school. And they also have access to a member of SLT, which is myself, which is I'm down there. So they can ask those questions straight away, which sometimes, they wouldn't get to do because they wouldn't be allowed in school. And that's kind of snowballed into we had a really successful pink day. I even bought the Mega Sup out, and we had some Mega Sup racing for Flag Day, inviting all the parents to come round and take part. And that's been really successful. We've even grown that now. We even have a boot camp, which is really positive and really great fun to do. Right, moving swiftly on. I do the Parent Sup Club, so I would just go back to that. But every school has a PE team. Now, the PE teachers are normally good guys and girls, and they're normally quite front facing. So they're great to wheel out to meet parents to kind of do those activities. So there's no reason why at your school that you can't put these on. We've just got to think, a little bit outside of the box about how you can engage your parents in these times of COVID. Another thing that we've done is our community discount scheme. Now, each school, around the world has a massive audience. Now, we have parents and we have our children, and that audience that we have businesses want that audience, and they want that audience to come to their place of business and spend money there. Now, what we've done is we've gone and reached out to some of our local providers and been able to negotiate some discounts for our community in and around where they live. So some businesses have been extremely generous. One of the places that we've partnered up with is Alpha San. Now, Alpha San is a fantastic sports and activity place, and that's where we want to go, and we want to encourage our families to go and meet up outside of school, so we can take everything outside of school and still kind of really have that sense of community. Now, this is a new little project that we've been toying with. The Amity A team. This is our triathlon and multi-sports team. Now, unfortunately, in Abu Dhabi at the moment, we can't do competitive traditional sports. But outside of school, there are an amazing amount of triathlon, duathlon, multi-sport races that children can take part in. Now, what we have done is we've set up our group and we signpost our parents towards all these activities for their children to come and take part in. And we're having some real success of that, and we're seeing a real growth in that marketplace, in that sport and triathlon. So that's been really, really positive for us, and we've been really showing our Amity colours at all of these events and having some great success. Now, lastly and not leastly, we've really want to reward those people that are putting in that extra effort within our community, and we've come up with the we've come up with the Amity Beyond Education Award. Now, this award has been kindly sponsored by Loft Hotels, and they are basically going to donate to one of our successful members of our community who's really putting in that service to the community, and I've kindly donated a very nice prize for them, and we want to really reward those people that have gone that extra mile for our community. So yeah, that brings me to the end of that. I'll just see if I can get back onto the screen. I'll stop sharing. There we go. I can come back. So that's what we're doing basically at Amity, to really promote our community and bring back a bit of the love, really, that over COVID times has been sadly missing.
It's fantastic to see that, Guy.
Yeah, we're doing some good things, and it's really it's really paying off with the parents that we see on a regular basis, and it's really good fun. It's bringing it is bringing back a really nice sense of I know I've talked about it a lot, but that sense of community within a school that I think COVID has really had that kind of detrimental effect on, which is a bit of a shame. So yeah, we're just trying to put it all back together.
That's great, and I think in a byproduct of that, you've just made every teacher in Abu Dhabi envious of you for getting to going paddleboarding.
No, I'm working hard. Yeah. No, it's a good part. It's quite nice for parents to actually see those members, and other members of staff do come down when they've got free time, and they can come down and they can meet parents, which they haven't really been able to do, and they haven't had that ability to go and talk to their teachers face to face. And it is quite nice that we do that down on the beach every morning. And it is, we do have an amazing facility to do that, but I'm not, schools can think about it in a different way. You've just got to get out there and meet your parents.
Exactly. Yes. What a great extension of the school gate in effectiveness.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That is what it is. It is an extension of the school gate. We are down there. We are approachable. You can come and see us. You can have that direct line to a member of SLT at the school, which sometimes sometimes schools don't, and they don't want that. Because some parents aren't happy sometimes, and they come down and they'll tell you. But it's just the way that you respond to it. And I think being open to parents in this time, and being a shoulder to cry on sometimes is what parents need. And they need to be able to question things. And you need to put across your side of the school, not in email form. which, you know, parents get emails all the time. It's nice to actually hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Not that I am a horse, but you know, I think that's
great. Thank you so much, Guy. So much of what you've shared resonates. It's been fantastic to have you on the show tonight. Really appreciate it. Please do follow Guy on social media at Guy Schooley, and of course you can follow Amity at Amity.
Apologies for my picture. That picture with my cycling helmet comes up all the time. I must change it.
We'll have to get a new one for next time. Thank you so much, Guy. It's been fantastic.
I'll get a better one, mate. I'll get a better one.
We look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Cheers,
Thanks, mate. Right, ladies and gentlemen, our next guest, we're going for a ever so slightly different approach with our next guest. She has been on the show before. However, she's our 106th guest on the show, and that is Miss Lisa Grace, if we could bring her up onto the show. Lisa, two things. Number one, I'm going to have to apologise on Mark's behalf because he has had to run to pick up his son from school. If we could, yes, unmute you. Welcome back to Learn Live UAE.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me back.
Always welcome. I'll just contextualise this for anyone that's watching, either in real time or watching it back. Lisa is editorial director of Teach Middle East magazine, and of course, as a byproduct of that, involved in a school leaders or Middle East School Leadership Conference. It's a difficult one to get at School Leaders ME on Twitter. Former teacher, in the private chat, you were just saying really enjoyed Jenny's presentation, brought back great memories having taught Spanish, really enjoyed it. So just as a very quick one, for anyone that doesn't know you, could you give us a sort of 30-second synopsis, please?
Right. So I'm Lisa Grace, as Ollie just said, and I am the editorial director of Teach Middle East magazine. But in a former life, I taught languages. I did teach English, I taught literature, I taught Spanish. So you're all around language person. And I also worked for people looking at this video and go, I know her from somewhere. Yes, I used to work with the Abu Dhabi Education Council, and I also led schools out here. So I was an advisor with the Abu Dhabi Education Council. And then I also was an academic principal with the Abu Dhabi Education Council as well. So I've been around the region a little bit. And now I work with just helping to connect the dots in education here via Teach Middle East magazine, the platform that supports educators who, like Ollie and all others who want to write, speak, and really get their voices heard in the space, Teach Middle East. And so that's what I do. I coordinate all of that with my team now.
And what made you decide, Lisa, to make the move from school leader, working with ADEC, to deciding to go your own way and start Teach Middle East magazine?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit personal. I have two boys, and so I wanted something that was more flexible, that I could work around them. They were quite young at the time. They're no longer young. They're growing up now. So I might have to go back to school and start leading a school again because they don't need me anymore. But so I became a mom, and as a result, I just really wanted to spend more time with them. And so writing and doing the types of things that I started to do gave me that flexibility to work around them when they're sleeping, or that type of thing. So as a mom, when I worked in schools, I really worked, and that's why I have such a massive appreciation for teachers, because I know exactly what you do and I know exactly what you're going through. So I'm not coming at it abstract. I'm not talking as a journalist talking to teachers. I taught for 20 odd years. So I know exactly when you say, listen, let me plan this lesson before I eat this sandwich, then go to the toilet before I start this lesson. I know exactly what that is and what it looks like. So yeah, I've segued into that, but I still am very much embedded in the education fabric and hope to be that way for a very, very long time.
Yeah, it's all encompassing, isn't it? Education is a very difficult thing to leave. You know, and it's. I think it's a joyful thing to be a part of. Education. You know, you get to influence young people. However, if we can just sort of talk about your influence on older people, if that's all right. If you're an educator and you're watching this and you're thinking, well, how do I get involved with Teach Middle East magazine or any of the future events? What should they do?
So the first thing you need to do is you need to drop me an email. It's editor@teachmiddleeast.com, and just say, I'd like to write, I'd like to speak, I'd like to get my voice out there, or, you know, I just want to share. Because at the end of the day, the more we share, the more we connect, is the more we grow, right? As a profession and as people. And I love teachers because we really are good at sharing and helping each other. So if you want to get involved, editor@teachmiddleeast.com. Tell us what you want to do, and we'll help you to do that.
And you know, writing or speaking aren't the only things. Obviously, you run a successful podcast as well, Teach Middle East podcast. Yes. Congratulations! You're over. I think I saw the other day 5,000 downloads now.
Yes, it's growing.
Yes, we're growing. On that thread then of collaboration, you know, collaboration in the region has grown significantly over the last, 10 years, and it's been astronomically quick in the last 5 years. What do you attribute that change to?
Wow, I just think that when you come out here, okay, so in the last 5 years, let me put it to the recent time that you've asked. I think people have just really woken up to the fact that, there is a community, and the use of social media, I think, has helped that, especially Twitter for educators out here is really, really good. And I think people have, woken up to the fact that if we do this thing together, we'll have an easier and a better time than if we're siloed in our own little schools and not really understanding what's going on in the wider community.
It's great. And I think going back to your kind of career then, essentially, is once you get to that point where you're working for a governing body like ADEC, you get oversight across multiple schools. And I think for me, what social media does do really well, which you've just highlighted there, is it enables you to learn about different contexts and try and apply that to your own setting.
Yeah. And you know what's amazing? What I find amazing is, even though the landscape is such that private schools are essentially competing with each other, I find though that the teachers aren't competing with each other, which is so good. And that if they've got a resource, they're willing to share it, and Learn Live is a brilliant platform. Like, I sat here and watched all the presentations and thought, oh my gosh, this is such richness. Because if 7 educators can come on and you can sit there with your notepad or your note on your tablet, you know how it is nowadays, and you can start taking notes of what things people are doing in their schools. Yeah. You might not be able to take everything, but you can take quite a bit of it. It's just brilliant. It's just rich. Are you able to hear me? I think I might have gone frozen.
I think I keep freezing as well, which is not a good sign.
Yeah, it's the internet. We're both in Abu Dhabi.
Okay. Yeah, it's all right. We'll make it. On that thread then of being a former teacher, leader, principal, working for the governing body, and now doing the work that you do, what tips would you share for educators that are looking to finally step into using social media, or just sharing with Teach Middle East magazine? Because most teachers aren't on social media or online.
I think, one of the things I found, Ollie, is that teachers are afraid to get it wrong or to speak up. They think, oh my God, if I say something, everybody's gonna crucify me. Listen, there's a lot of grace and mercy in the world. If you put your voice out there and you don't get it right, it doesn't mean you'll be annihilated. Someone might just tap you on the shoulder and say, do it this way or do it that way. I say, don't be afraid. write something, participate in something, put your best foot forward. You never can tell where it will lead you. I preach that. I think that's my thing that I tell people the most. Use your voice. And by using your voice, it could be your writing, it could be your speaking, it could be come on, learn live. Hit up Ollie, say, I'd love to take part, or Mark, get on board and open your mouth and speak. You can never tell how far what you have to say will go, and somebody will be benefiting from what you have to contribute. So go ahead.
I think.
Are we frozen again? Let me cut some of my stuff out.
I think we both frozen again. I'm mindful of time as well. We've got 1 minute left. You've got some events that are coming up. Obviously, there's the Middle East School Leadership Conference and other things in the pipeline. And on that thread of being brave, stepping up, sharing your voice, what can educators expect from those events, Lisa, and why should they get involved?
So the first one that's coming up, so I'll go quickly, is the Leadership Conference. The Middle East School Leadership Conference is back. It's in Dubai, March 1 and 2. We're bringing together school leaders again to talk to each other. You know, events are great, but they're great for one thing, and that is to get people together face to face to talk. A screen, as much as we love them, they never replace that face to face physical connection that we like to enjoy with each other. So March 1 and 2, the lineup is now complete, so I can't invite anyone to speak. The lineup is completely full, but go check it out. It's schoolleadersme.com. That's schoolleadersme.com. Ollie is speaking, Guy is speaking, Mark Leppard is speaking. I can't name them all. Jeff Evans, Malaya Asif, Asha Alexander. We've got Maury Thomas, Brett Gervin, Nav Iqbal, Linda Parsons, Philippa Rafemel, Michael Strachan, Ian Thurston. I can't name them all. Just really fantastic school leaders coming together to share. The format is we're going to have roundtable discussions, and we're going to also have keynote presentations. But in the roundtable discussions, every school leader on the roundtable will be able to share just a little bit about what's going on in their schools and take questions from the moderators and the audience. It's such a great way to get a window into schools in a time when you can't physically leave your school and go to somebody else's school. So schoolleadersme.com. Now, if you want to know about the other events, just follow Teach Middle East at Teach Middle East on Twitter. We always post stuff. My colleague Christina, my colleague Richard, Nimra, we're always on it doing the thing. So please join us at Teach Middle East on Twitter.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Lisa. If you're watching either live or at a later date, please do get in touch at Lisa Grace or at Teach Middle East or at School Leaders ME. Please do contact Lisa, editor at teachmiddleeast.com, and get involved. You know, I'm one of those people. I stepped up and I reached out to Lisa and I started sharing, and here we are. And that's the timer going off that you can hear there.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for your time, Lisa. It's been great to have you back on the show. Please do reach out to her and get involved in all of the opportunities that she's got for educators in the region. They are all brilliant. And once you start sharing once, it's addictive. You just have to keep sharing it. It's fantastic. Keep sharing, because we all learn from it, and that benefits our students. And that's why we all got into this space in the first place, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on 2022's first Learn Live UAE, and we look forward to seeing you again next month, and maybe at the Middle East School Leadership Conference. Thanks, guys.